yes, I'm going to record. That's not to you because you asked to record. It just made me think about some people don't come because they want you to record the class. But yes, I'll definitely will record it for you. When it comes to cyber forensics, there's one case where a individual was being harassed. His lawyer asked him for the laptop. He gave them the laptop, but he didn't give him the correct laptop. He eventually threw the other laptop in the trash. So when they came to ask him about it, because the cyber forensic specialist reviewed the computer and he said, this couldn't have been the laptop that was in the crime. And the lawyer was like, why? The forensic specialist said, because the hard drive was made at a later date than the crime was committed. And see that? Now, if he didn't have his knowledge of hard drives, then he wouldn't have been able to come to that assessment. So we never know. And a lot of people say, well, I want to work for the police doing forensics and investigations. And, it's cyber forensics. It's a lot to it. So it's a lot to know. All right. So let's move on. We were also talking about that process of how programs and processes tell the computer, I need more resources. And each one has a process ID. Each process has a process ID. And then you have a file handler. And this is how you can identify which information is in the file system. So your processes are usually created by the bootloader or through a request by the operating system or another process or by a user. That's like when you select an application that a number of processes will take place to run that particular application. So we talked about memory management as well. So I'm going to skip through that. A device driver is software that controls hardware, and the kernel controls that. Remember that the kernel controls software and hardware. You have polling, where you're going to check each device, each application or process to determine if it needs resources. Then you have a interrupt, and an interrupt is a signal that's generated by input-output device. So that's kind of what I was referring to. The signal is called an interrupt or interrupt request. It says depends on a CPU. If we were to look at a CPU, LGA versus PGA, if you look at the images of a CPU, come on, computer, I'm gonna have to run a boot scan. I'm trying to find a good image. All right, here we go. The pins on the bottom of a CPU, these pins, applications will send signals to pin one. And when they send that signal, that's an interrupt request. Pins on a CPU are usually called interrupt request lines. It says when the CPU detects an IRQ, it stops what it's doing, determines the source of the interrupt, and starts execution of the interrupt service routine or an ISR. This is called an interrupt handler. So you got a file handler, an interrupt handler. So when you have these interrupts, they're really called traps. Okay. And these traps help when determining how much resources are going to be available for certain applications and processes. To prevent unnecessary interrupts, ISR turns off interrupts of equal or lower priority. And we call this interrupt masking. Just moving forward again. In terms of operating systems, where that operating systems also help with authentication and authorization. Authentication, you're trying to verify an account or an individual is trying to access a system, like a username and password, and an authorization gives access to files and folders on that particular system. We call those permissions. And if you want to see a quick example of permissions, I think I pulled one up. As I'm always in a file or a folder. So if I went here to a particular folder, let's say this folder here, and I right click this folder and then go to properties, and then if I go to security, here you have your groups or usernames. Here are all the authenticated users, groups, and administrators. If I wanted to edit or change permissions for a particular user, I would edit that here, or you can have advanced permissions as well. Very different on a on a server's operating system, but that's how it looks on a regular client system or client-based devices. We talked about the kernel, but I'm not going to stay on it too long. Manage interactions with the CPU, manage interrupt handlers and device drivers, handles basic computer security, manages use of computer memory, manages priority levels, and assign the programs and computer processes. Let me give you another understanding of this course once again, because I want to reiterate that. I know a lot of your goal is to, I want to get a job in cyber. I want to, do this, but this class is the boring part. This is the foundational information that you need. So there's no labs associated with this except for the ones that are going to be associated with cases and completing cases. So while no due dates are there yet, I'll be setting due dates this weekend. Asia, I'm not sure if you were able to get your book. Were you? Your course materials from the bookstore? You can type it in the chat if need be. I'm sorry, Ann Brewer.
Um,
Brewer.
my book is getting delivered tomorrow.
Okay, all right. So I'll start assigning dates of the assignment next week. So, did you get just the? Well, it doesn't. Did you get the Mind Tap access code or just the
That wasn't listed on the
syllabus?
bookstores uh, required
Huh?
things, but I believe that there will be a code
Yeah.
when I get the book, and I'll get that access.
Uh,
Otherwise, I'll buy it.
okay, because the if we go to the syllabus, uh, so you said when you asked the bookstore about the course, they didn't have it. They didn't have that listed.
When you type in the course name on the bookstore website, it only listed that one book. And actually, it
Uh,
had the eighth edition listed, so that's the one I got.
well, with so this is I'm gonna walk through the process for this particular one.
Okay.
So if we were to go to the bookstore and what am I doing? Go back. Academics, current students. Go to the bookstore, then order textbooks. Go here to the course list, Liberty Campus, and then we're gonna go to cyber defense, cyber digital and forensics. And our course is 110, and all staff, they don't have one professor. Generate the, all they have is the textbook. Did y'all experience the same thing when y'all ordered the course materials?
I will say though, I got that textbook on Amazon because it was 80% off.
Eh, Marco and Tolalupe, did y'all go through the same exact thing?
I was given only the code for the lab. So I was
Yeah,
thinking the textbook was also the online textbook.
yeah, because I don't understand why this is showing up when it's supposed to be a code.
No, you get the
Um,
code after you purchase it.
so when you purchase this book, you got the
Mm.
code.
Yes. So they will
Okay,
send you ask the library to send you the code or you go there to collect it in person. So I collected mine in person.
okay. Because I know some people who have issues sometimes. They have the eighth edition here. It's just okay. Um, Operating systems. Yeah, I wasn't alerted of that because I always thought it was just the sixth edition. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Bookstore. Goodness. All right. So hopefully the access code will come with it. If it doesn't, please notify the bookstore that you need the access code in order to get into MindTap. Is this your first semester, Anne?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay. So just to show you real quick, and you've never worked in MindTap before?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So when you access the class, which is Canvas, the way I normally tell students, after you get the access code, you're going to come to one of the assignments. And when you just click on one of the assignments, when you click on one of the assignments, it's going to bring up this prompt. And when you click on the prompt, then it's going to, in my case, I'm already logged in. But what it will do, maybe I'll go into student mode, view as a student, and refresh. Then, so what you want to do is you want to have your access code and your account linked to your school, because if you use your Gmail or whatever other account you have, it may pose a problem. This one is closed, locked. I have to unlock them. I'll unlock all of the modules. February 16th is passed, so let me go to another one. All right. So if I come here, you get the prompt, you click on the prompt, and then it's going to ask you to either log in or create an account. Okay. So then you would create your account. Yes, I'm a student. You would put in your email here. And as it says here, consider using your institutional email. This will serve as your username. The reason why you do that is because when you're in MindTap, and I'm not trying to show grades or anything, but when assignments are completed, if you complete them in MindTap and you go the um, through the school, your grades will automatically populate into Canvas. So just to show you really quick, not trying to go into the because I haven't graded pretty much. Um, so your name's already here. You got your access code already?
Not the access code, but I did click on the link to try to
Oh, you
up
created your account.
and I created the account. Yes, sir.
So it's the temporary one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Good. So at least you understand the temporary process of getting in. That makes sense. Okay, good. And then, once you get your full access code, so then you would enter that access code or redeem it so that you can, so basically that you can have access to those assignments. Because I know at some point the temporary access code is going to expire. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Okay. Back to where I was. So that's module one. Okay. And
Can I say something real quick?
you can go right ahead.
So I was actually able to get the permanent one.
Okay.
All I did was get the one from the book or from the bookstore,
Uh-huh.
and I got the same code, used it twice, and I got the book.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's how I was able to do it.
Okay. So if that helps anyone, I guess you can do it that way as well. Normally when you get the code, you get an ebook and a and I understand. Me personally, I'm getting older, and with me getting older, I don't like reading online anymore. Like I do it because I have to, but I do like a physical book in my hand. So if you still need that, then you know you can still do that. And plus, these pretty much expire after I believe 6 months. Um, I can't recall how long you can hold on to them, but make sure you do that. You have your chapter readings that you can go through, your learning objectives, your chapter reading. They have activities here, but there's no real lab that's associated with it. So here you have some cases. All right. In these cases, these are what I've signed. So when you go into the case, they're going to ask you a question, and then you'll answer the question. So this is what I meant by case study. So you'll use your reading materials and the internet to answer these questions. The Lawson City and County Planning Department have recently reviewed a new budget allocation to purchase new desktop and server systems. This is why we're studying server operating systems and client operating systems. Because the budget has been strapped for many years, the department hasn't been able to upgrade its systems. Most of the desktop computers are running Windows 7 or Windows 10 version 1703. So you got to do a little bit of research to understand the difference between the two operating systems. The server systems are Windows Server 2008 and Windows Server 2012. Now, I believe we're way past that now. The department has network and internet connectivity through a combination of older wired and wireless technologies. Before they begin making decisions, the planning office managers ask you to make a presentation to cover the basics of operating systems, which is what they do. They'll ask the IT department, what can we do to improve our infrastructure? They ask you to begin the presentation by explaining basic functions of the operating system performed, the operating systems perform, and current choices available for desktop and server computers. Create a presentation and give it to the class or your instructor. All you have to do for this is, explain explain the functions of an operating system, the functions of the server systems, and then your recommendations on which desktop and server computers would be available. And you could really find that online, that part. So you don't have to create a presentation, but just explain what you would do. And then I'll read through it and grade it based upon that. So this is what the case studies look like. So it gives you an understanding of what a IT professional or a cyber professional would do, because you're also going to be you have to understand the trending market, and you have to understand systems so that you can provide advice for organizations. So that's what these cases look like, and that's why I said it's learning materials, and then it's the case studies with the course as well, which I will assign next week. So we're going to double up. So as you can see, it's not that much. We're going to double up. So next week, cases for chapters 1 and 2 will be due. And then once we get caught up, we can slow down. Um, so that's where we're at with that. The hands-on projects, I'm not recommending, and I'll tell you this because most people don't have a Linux system to do a Linux interface, and this does not provide that. It walks you through the steps of it to understand it, but it's not. Um, you don't have a Linux system at your disposal. But there are options for Linux. So I can still teach Linux concepts because there are online platforms like JS Linux. And JS Linux, you can actually select a type of Linux. So if you saw there, it said Fedora. You got Fedora right here. If we're going to use Fedora, you would just click on the particular link, click here, and then it's going to open up a version of Linux that you can actually use on your computer. It just takes a while to load. Yep, and there it is. This Linux does not have a man page. So if you were to type man ls or anything like that, see, it doesn't, or just type man. What manual page do you want? We could try man. If this has a manual page, I'll be shocked because most times when I teach using this, there's no manual page available. Oh my goodness. They've updated. Okay. Well, that's good. It's a full Linux then. Um, and once again, I'll put that in the announcements. Uh, if you want to study, and we can do an assignment on that as well, just go over some basic Linux commands. We'll say access to Linux online. I taught a whole class and we had no man pages, so they've updated. All right. Let's see. This. I should have done it this way. Link. So that will be in the announcement section of the course. And at some point, we'll do an activity where we go over Linux, especially if you never used Linux before. Has anyone in here used Linux? I think you have, Total Lupe. Hello?
Yes.
You've used Linux, Marco?
I have not. I don't
Okay.
think.
Okay. Um, Anybody else? Have y'all used or experience have opportunity using Linux?
Is it like a coding website
N-
or?
No, you don't have to code. Linux is another operating system. It's one
Oh,
of
then I have no
many.
idea.
Yeah. So that's what this was here. That you saw me in the background. Linux is an operating system that is used with a number of different server systems. It was created by Linus Torvalds in the 80s. It's a derivative of Unix. If you take any other courses in this environment, it is like Unix. Is everyone there? Is everyone here? All right. Let's get back here. Um, I'm gonna put a message out there, letting individuals know that if they don't come to class, I will mark them absent. So I'll do that after this class. So please make sure you go back and finish reading through the chapter 1 module. And I want to get into the chapter 2 module as well. All right. And since you already have access to the assignments, I'm going to go ahead and start plugging in the chapter activities so that people can start working on them in the interim. All right. So let's go into chapter 2. Here's the objectives for this chapter. We're going to describe the early Microsoft operating systems, their characteristics, identify the features of modern Microsoft operating systems, identify the features and characteristics of Unix and Unix like operating systems, and identify the features and characteristics of Mac and Mac OS operating systems. All right. Let's get into some of the terms very quickly. Not all of them, but some of them. Task switching. Microsoft or most operating systems can run multiple programs at a time, but only foreground tasks receive CPU time. To switch between tasks, users click on another window or use a keystroke combination such as Alt Tab to go to tasks, switching to different tasks. Okay. Just as so as you see, I got a lot going on in the background. Antivirus. All right. Let's go to the next. Yeah, plug and play. Plug and play just means that you can swap out things like hard drives or anything as long as the computer is still running. Says an operating system and hardware feature that facilitates automatic hardware detection and configuration. Windows versions started with 95 recognizing plug and play hardware when it is installed, and in most cases can configure the hardware and install required drivers. Like when you plug in a printer or a new keyboard, the system will start looking for drivers. ActiveX is a graphics program. It's a program standard that allows various software applications running under the Windows operating system to communicate with Windows and other programs. You have the component object model, or COM, mostly associated with printers, a group of standards in Windows operating systems that enable software entities such as Windows or control panel applets to communicate with one another. Your registry, a Windows database that stores information about a computer's hardware and software configuration. Task Supervisor, a process in the operating system that keeps track of applications running on the computer and the resources they use. All right, that will be your processes, your services, and things of that particular nature. Universal Plug and Play, an innovative, I should say innovation of more than 80 companies to develop products that can be quickly added to a computer or network. These products include intelligent appliances for the home. Multi-threading. This is a CPU characteristic, the ability of a CPU to execute separate parts or threads of a process at a time. Universal serial bus designed to support up to 127 discrete devices with data transfer speeds up to 5 gigabytes. It's more than that now. Note the USB 4 may be released by the time this book is published, and it promises speeds up to 40 gigabytes per second. A hung task. We've seen this happen a number of times. An unresponsive process that must be manually terminated. And when we speak of processes, if I go to Task Manager, you'll see a plethora of processes and background processes that are taking place. If we go to Services, you will also see a plethora of services that are running that may have stopped as well, and that are in the background, as well as you can have startup apps. Be careful about how many startup apps you have enabled on your system. You can also look at the performance of your device. And as you can see, my CPU is cranking a lot. I have a lot of things open. So if I begin to close some of those things that I have open, the CPU will begin to drop its performance. This is very important to understand because this is also related to cyber. And with that, if I was a analyst and I saw this, I would think something was wrong with my network or computer, or either I have my computer's not running well, or I'm using too many processes, or something is wrong with the network. We refer to these as indicators of compromise. Domain. What is a domain? A collection of users and computers in a server-based network whose accounts are managed by Windows servers called domain controllers. So, in order to have a work group or a domain, more importantly, a domain, you need to have a domain controller and a group of computers that controls that particular group of workstations. An administrative or security boundary with which all member computers are subject to common administrative and security policies. Just meaning that if I have 20 computers and they're in that particular domain, then I'm going to have policies associated with how users interact on that particular group of computers. Virtual private networks, a private network that provides authentication and encryption while running over a non secure network, such as the internet or enterprise network. Um, Active Directory, a directory service that is the core component of a Windows domain environment. It provides a single point of user authentication and authorization, as well as a domain client and server management. Okay. So I want to kind of step back for a moment and show you the importance of this. So a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get certified. I want to get certified. So let's pull back a little bit and let's say network plus objectives. And I just want to show you some of the terms and terminology that is actually on these exams. Okay, let me maximize this so you can see. All right, so we're going to go here and look at some of the terms. All right, OSI model. OSI model is a model that really talks about how our messages flow through a network or are created as well. You have characteristics of network topologies, which really describes network, his client server, peer to peer, things that we're talking about right now. Um, Go a little deeper. This is really about more hardware devices, the different types of cable, copper cable, coaxial cable, fiber, the connection types, which is very important. We refer to these as our network infrastructure. These are jobs as well. You know, our cable companies and the power companies handle a lot of installing and what we call retrofitting. This is networking terms right here. And this deals with how our messages travel over the network. And here are protocols, which eventually you'll have to learn a good majority of these protocols. I'm just skimming through some things. Um, Here are the network devices that we've been talking about so far. A DHCP server, and here are the characteristics and functions that are associated with DHCP servers. Is a DNS server. You have a network time protocol, which we haven't talked about, probably won't talk about in this class. And these are some other things. I'm just trying to show you some of the terms that you learn in this course that are associated with a lot of the content that's going to be associated with certification exams. Then you have different networking devices, which we will get to when we get into the networking chapter, where we'll start talking and wireless networking as well. So here we're going to talk about ether networks, and here are ether network terms. Media access control, we will be talking about that. Um, um, the different address tables. So I'm just trying to give you. We will get into this as well, the different wireless standards and the frequencies. So I just want you to understand some of the concepts that are going to be associated with a number of the things that you're learning in this course. Why it's important to get that firm understanding. Okay. If I was to show you the A plus, you'll see more of the content that we're talking about now. Driver signing, a digital signature that Microsoft incorporates into driver and system files as a way to verify the files and ensure that they're not inappropriately overwritten by earlier driver versions. So you get a signature, you know, only certified versions of drivers can be installed. You have Windows on Windows, a subsystem first introduced with Windows NT that allows 16-bit applications to run in a virtual DOS environment called NT Virtual DOS Machine. We're like, well, why are we going back to learn all this older technology as well? And it's because older technology is still being used today. The stock market still uses older technology. Some organizations are still running on Windows 7, which is bad, but they may not have money to upgrade. Kerberos. Kerberos is an authentication and authorization system. It says a security system and authentication protocol that authenticates users and grants or denies access to network resources. If you've worked remotely, here's the real world application, and you were at home, but you had to access your computer system as if you were sitting on the job, you used maybe this form of authentication where there's a server that has your information in it, and it will provide you a token or some certificate or some form of information to verify that you are who you say you are. So Kerberos uses encryption to verify individuals. So you would log onto a VPN. After logging onto a VPN, you would enter a code, and that would give you access to this remote access server. And then this server would verify you, and then you would gain access to that organization. So Kerberos, print management, and I can do this very quickly. I like to be visual. This is Radius. This is TagX plus video. This is my guy right here. I like him. Sunny.
Hello, and this is Sunny. Welcome back. Today my topic is TagX Plus, another application of AAA security framework. In this video, I will also talk about the difference between Radius and TagX Plus. First, let's review AAA security framework. AAA stands for Authentication, Authorization, and Accounting. It is a fundamental security framework for controlling a user's access to a network, determining access levels or users' privileges based on policies and user identity, and keeping track of the user activities. Authentication is the first component of AAA. Suppose you are the user. It basically asks, who are you? You need some credentials, normally username and password, to verify your identity. After your identity is verified, you will be granted with some privileges, and this is the second component of AAA framework, authorization. It is about what you can do. The privileges can include what kinds of resources or services you can access, what tasks you can perform, and how long you can use these resources. Accounting is the third component of AAA framework. It keeps track of your log activities, which may include what resources you used, and how much you used, and how long you used, and etc. Data collected at this stage could be used for controlling, monitoring, billing, statistics, and so on. TagX stands for Terminal Access Controller, Access Control System. Plus sign means a newer or updated version of TagX. Like Radius, TagX Plus also uses AAA framework to provide centralized access into a network. Radius was designed to authenticate and log remote network users, while TagX Plus is used for administrators' access to network devices like routers and switches. TagX Plus servers should be deployed in a fully trusted internal network. No direct access should be allowed from untrusted or semi-trusted networks. Now let's compare Radius with TACX+. At the transport layer, Radius uses UDP, while TACX+ uses TCP. Radius uses two pairs of UDP port numbers, 1645, 1646, or 1812, 1813. TACX+ uses port number 49. That's it. Very simple. In terms of communication and encryption, Radius is less secure. Only password is encrypted. TACX+ is more secure. It encrypts the whole packet. The Radius cannot authenticate network devices, but TACX+ can. The primary use of Radius is for the remote user to access the network. TACX+ is used primarily for device administration. Therefore, Radius is for AAA users, while TACX+ is for AAA administrators.
Now that was TACX and Radius. I'm trying to see. Here's a video on Kerberos, and these are talking about authentication and authorization servers. A server is just a computer that offers a service. If you want to go on the internet, we go on the internet and we're really accessing a computer. So we travel through, if you go sci-fi with me, we travel through these wires and these cables via light, via radio frequency waves, via electricity through copper cabling, and coaxial cable. And then what happens is we get to our particular destination, and that destination is a computer, which we call a server, that's offering a particular service. Okay. In terms of us accessing a service or getting access to a network, we're either going to use Radius, TACX, or we're going to use Kerberos, because the goal is to authenticate the individual, the document, the computer that's trying to get access to that particular system. And Kerberos is one of those authentication and authorization devices.
Hello, this is Sunny. Welcome back. Today my topic is Kerberos. In Greek mythology, Kerberos is a dog with 3 heads. But today I will not talk about the dog. I will talk about an authentication protocol for client-server applications. Let me explain what it means. On most computer systems, your password is used to prove your identities. But anyone knowing your password will effectively be you, which is no good. Therefore, it is necessary to prevent anyone from eavesdropping on your password on unsecure network. At the same time, it is also necessary to provide a means of authenticating a user to use any service anytime. This can be done with Kerberos, which is designed for 2 purposes: security and authentication. Here is how it works. Suppose a client wants to access a file server, but with Kerberos, the client must be verified through a trusted third party. And this third party is a Key Distribution Center, or KDC. KDC includes 2 servers: Authentication Server, or AS, and Ticket Granting Server, or TGS. Step 1. The client sends a request to Authentication Server like my user ID is so and so, and I need a ticket to a server, something like this. His request is partially encrypted with a secret key, his password. Keep in mind, he never sends his password over the unsecure network. He just uses it as an encryption key. When AS gets the client request, it will retrieve his password in the database based on user ID and use his password as a key to decrypt his request. Remember, his password is a shared secret key between authentication server and the client. This is how the user is verified. After verifying the client, authentication server sends back a ticket called Ticket Granting Ticket, or TGT, encrypted with another secret key. Step 2. After client gets TGT, he sends this ticket to Ticket Granting Server along with his request, like I want to access the file server. When the TGS gets the TGT, it decrypts the ticket with the secret key shared with authentication server. Then TGS issues the client a token which is encrypted with another secret key. This third secret key is shared between TGS and the file server. Then the client sends the token to the file server. Last step. When the file server gets the token, it encrypts the token with the secret key shared with TGS. The file server then allows the client to use its resources for a certain period of time according to the token. The token is like movie ticket with which a person can go to a theater to enjoy a certain movie at a certain time on a certain day. Now you can see all communications between the different parties involve a secret key. For example, the client and authentication server share a secret key, which is his password. Authentication server and ticket granting server share a secret key, and ticket granting server and file server share the same secret key. Therefore, Kerberos is one example of using private key encryption or symmetric key encryption. If you want to know more about private key encryption, please check out my another video. And thank you very much, and see you next time.
So yeah, so I showed that video because I wanted to kind of give you like a quick understanding of remote access servers, what Kerberos really is, and what radius and TACAX is as well, because we will get into those topics as well. He mentioned a number of other topics like encryption, asymmetric, symmetric encryption that we will cover in this course as well. So knowing the terms and terminology is very important. So print management console. So whenever you're going to print, your information must go through a particular console. So your print management console is a console that allows a system administrator to manage printers and printing throughout the network. So you have a print management console. Microsoft Management Console. An example of a Microsoft Management Console would be Event Viewer. This is a Microsoft Management Console here where we can look at the different events that are taking place on our computer system. If I right click, Disk Management is another form of Microsoft Management Console where we can look at all of our hard drives or our storage media that's attached to our devices. Even though this is on a client perspective and not on the server perspective as well, or a single user computer as opposed to a multi-user operating system. Get out of here. So I can look at every hard drive I have attached to my computer with this Microsoft Management Console called Disk Management. What's the definition? A standardized management interface that allows the addition of plugins that contain the functionality needed to configure a particular aspect of a Windows system. For example, the computer management tool in the control panel is a Microsoft Management Console with several plugins installed. Activation, a process that registers your copy of a Windows operating system. The process that requires an activation key and provides full legal access to an operating system. .NET Framework, a large library available to a variety of programming languages that allows multiple programming languages to use code from other languages. And these are just a few of terms. I want you to go through the rest. I'm not going to spend the whole class period going through these terms, but make sure that you look through these terms as well. You have a number of assignments that are associated with that. Let me go here to the PowerPoint. All right, going here. So we're going to talk about Microsoft, Unix, Unix-like operating systems like Linux, and we're also going to talk about Mac OS as well. All right, let's get into it. You have different versions of Microsoft. It's been since the early 80s that Microsoft has been a major player in operating systems as well as other computer systems. There have been only two branches of Microsoft OSs within that period. You have MS-DOS and Windows. So MS-DOS is the earlier version of Windows, which is similar to if you were to come and type CMD in the search of your computer. And this would be similar to Microsoft DOS, where you have a list of commands that you could follow. And these commands would help you do a number of different things. So as you saw, I typed help. What am I saying? Type help, and a number of these different commands were able to populate. All right. Come out of that. MS-DOS was created in 81, and it was just called DOS at the time. The version of MS-DOS that ran on the early IBM computers was called PC-DOS. I'm sorry. So it was started with IBM in the early 80s. MS-DOS 3.1 was released in 1984. First version of DOS to support the network redirector. MS-DOS 6.22, larger disk drives were supported. There was more and better memory support, better device driver support. Remember, a device driver is software that controls hardware. Okay. Let's move on. In terms of Windows 95 and Windows 98 and Windows Me, you had later versions of MS-DOS as well. And Windows 3.1, which was released in 1992, you had your first GUI. Okay, I just think that was a while back, 1992. I went to high school I was in high school. Windows 3.1 did not support real multitasking, but did support task switching. And what task switching was I showed earlier. If I was to come here and hit Alt Tab, I can switch to a different task. So that's all we're doing here, switching to different tasks. Come out of that. Windows work groups, Windows for work groups were in Windows 3.1 and 3.111, which added important features. Now you had network drivers as well as enhanced TCP/IP protocol stacks, and that goes back to information that's going to be on the Net Plus that we were talking about, IPv4, IPv6 protocol stacks. If you were to take the Network Plus exam, Windows 3.1 and its immediate successor still had problems with frequent crashing. Then you have Windows 95, which is a hybrid. It allowed you to use 16-bit and 32-bit operating system programs and applications. It eliminated the 640 kilobit memory limit and the 16-bit code supported by Windows 3.1 and DOS. You now have a Windows desktop with a startup button, which was introduced in Windows 95. You have plug and play, ActiveX, and the component object model. Or these things are like COM ports and things of that nature. This is why I said going over the terminology is very important. Plus, it helps when you have to answer and respond to the excuse me, the cases. The registry. Now, the registry is a hierarchical database that provides the following. It gives you OS configurations, service and device driver information, software and application parameters, hardware configuration, performance information, and desktop configuration. Multitasking. In terms of multitasking and multi-threading, Windows 95 introduced a task supervisor, which detects processes that appear stuck and present the option to close them without having to restart the computer, because now you have a task supervisor. You have a hung task, is when programs are unresponsive, and Windows 95 was the first operating system that supported multi-threading. Multi-threading is a CPU feature that allows you to execute separate parts of a process at a time. Let's go here. Now it's trying to redirect to Google. So every time because I block redirects. All right, here we go.
Hello, folks.
I will fix you.
Hello, folks. Today I want to talk to you about multi-threading. At a very high level, I'm going to go over what it is and why we want to use it. I wanted to create a video on multi-threading because if you're new to the concept of multi-threading, it sounds really scary. In reality, multi-threading is a very practical and straightforward concept. In short, multi-threading enables us to do parallel computing efficiently. Let's start our explanation of multi-threading by first discussing how a process works. When you start a program, it is first loaded and given an address space in main memory from your hard disk. After being loaded in memory, it is then scheduled onto an available CPU. When a process is scheduled onto a CPU, the process instructions are executed sequentially. Take for example this simple program which prints out "Hello World" to the console. When we run this program, the CPU will execute each line of the program sequentially, and it will keep track of which instruction it is about to execute by using what's known as a program counter. The program counter represents part of an execution context. An execution context is the current state of a running process, which includes data like what instruction the CPU is currently executing. If you have multiple CPUs, and even in the case of a single CPU, you could have multiple execution contexts within a single process. We refer to these execution contexts in an abstract data structure called a thread. A process can have one or more threads. These threads can execute simultaneously on multiprocessor and multi-core systems and execute different sections of the program. In contrast to a thread, a process is allocated an address space. In the case of a thread shares its parent process's address space along with any other threads that the parent process has created. In this way, threads are considered a lightweight option to a process because they will almost always consume less memory than a new process would. In this diagram, we see that process 2 has several threads. There is also a variable x that process 2 created. All three of the threads in process 2 have the ability to read and write to the memory location where variable x is located. If variable x were to be incremented every time we completed a for loop iteration within process 2, there's a possibility that each of these threads may increment the variable. As the programmer, we have no control over which thread accesses variable x and when it accesses variable x. The reason for this is that the operating system scheduler schedules processes and threads according to its scheduling algorithm. Whatever scheduling algorithm is on our operating system, that's what we have to use. This can cause really nasty issues in multi-threaded programs. In order to implement multi-threaded programs, we almost certainly have to use what's known as a synchronization construct. There are many, but some of the most common are mutexes and semaphores. These mechanisms enforce synchronization between threads. So if thread 1 in process 2 is currently updating variable x with a new value, no other threads will be allowed to update variable x while thread 1 is updating it. I said earlier that multithreading allows us to perform parallel computing efficiently. We could very well have, instead of threads, multiple processes running on multiple CPUs. In doing so, we can avoid the problem of synchronization between threads in a multi-threaded process, because each process has its own address space that other processes are not allowed to write to, and the operating system actively prevents them from doing this. However, address spaces can be very large, and we may only need to run a portion of the program rather than all of it each time we run it. If we were to create many processes to perform parallel computing, we would quickly use up the memory on most any machine. This is why threads are useful, because they utilize the address space of the parent process, making
I'm gonna stop him there because some concepts and terms that he's going into is a bit much, but at the same time, you see multi-threading is the ability to run more threads of a program at the same time, because an operating system or CPU doesn't just take an entire program; it threads the program as you use it. If you're playing a video game, the whole video game isn't processed by the CPU. It processes threads of the game at the same time, or an application. Okay. So that's multitasking and multi-threading, which are two characteristics or functions of an operating system. You have enhanced networking and internet capabilities, which was in Windows 95. All networking code was written in 32-bit programs or applications. By 1997, Microsoft introduced the web browser and Internet Explorer. So this wasn't that long ago, to some. It wasn't that long ago, but the software and the internet has been improving by leaps and bounds. Windows 98, you had the expanded plug and play support, you had the automatic registry checks and repairs, advanced power management. And another thing about accessing the registry, if you had to access the registry on your computer, you would use commands like regedit, reg. So for registry editor, if you right clicked your Windows PC and clicked run and typed reg edit, then your reg editor will appear as such. And when it comes to the registry editor, you get to see what are called keys. So you have your H key class as root or your H key current user local machine users, and current configurations. All of these are configurations and instructions that are associated with your computer. So when we say registry, this is what we're referring to, um, those particular things. So Windows 98 did registry checks and repairs. Advanced power management. If you right click, I think I have my system button here. I have mine in my taskbar. That if I go, I can access settings, and then I can go to system, and I can take a look at various things on my system that I want to look at, especially if I want to go to power. And this is what they were talking about here in terms of how you can adjust the different power settings on your computer. You have improved cooperative multitasking for 16-bit apps. And cooperative means when one task runs, it finishes. Once it finishes, the operating system will mark that program or process has stopped running and make space on the hard drive for the next computer or RAM, excuse me, for the computer to start running the next process. Greater integration of internet and networking features, extended multimedia support. This is where our ActiveX um, programs come into place. Expanded support for high-speed networking, ability to perform upgrades over the internet, and that was through the UEFI as well. But it's not UEFI yet. Windows Millennium Edition, the ME, was developed for home computers, and you could play music, store family photos, play games, access the internet. I think this was in the 90s. Then you had Universal Plug and Play. But so you went from 93 to like 98 is just was a changes by leaps and bounds. Then you had Windows NT. Windows New Technologies supported the IBM architecture because IBM computers and Windows computers really didn't read or correlate with one another. It was two different operating systems, two different file structures. Windows NT ran in privilege mode, a CPU operating system that allows, or operating mode that allows certain processes to execute privileged CPU instructions and access all memory locations. Put a one in the chat if this is making sense. Yes, yes. If this is not making sense, please let me know. Um, put a yes in the chat. If there's no yes in the chat, I assume that you're not paying attention.
Can you repeat that, please?
I said, put a yes in the chat if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, and it's fine. I understand since you don't have all your materials yet. So this is kind of like the overview, but I want to make sure that everyone is reading and getting caught up beforehand. And I know it's a lot when your materials don't come on time. Um,
How
so
do
yeah,
we
Windows
access the
NT, which came in.
flashcards?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I
How
couldn't
do we
hear.
access the flashcards?
To access the flashcards, you go to your review section, and you have your PowerPoints and you have your flashcards.
Ooh, okay, thank you.
Yeah. Then what I normally ask for the completion of in their activities are the critical thinking cases. So this chapter has two. This is, let me see, you have the, yep, one, two cases this for this particular chapter, the reflection, and then you have the module two, networking for life, and then the quiz. If I go here to the module section and we scroll down to Chapter 2, you see there's a couple of cases. Wait a minute. Why don't I see that? There we go. Here's the cases here. That's because I shut them down. So these are the cases that will be graded. Okay. And like I said, if you click in them, they're not long in terms of completion. Like if I click start, you just have to answer the question. And reading through the chapter and searching the internet helps you to find the answer. The following scenarios used for case projects 2-1 through 2-6. Darts is a sporting goods company with outlets in most of the western states. This company has a network of 10 servers, 273 client computers that have been following the operating systems. You have 8 Windows servers using Server 2012, 2 Linux servers running Red Hat Linux, 20 computers running Mac OS, 32 running Windows, 80 running Windows 8.1, 46 computers running Windows 7, 12 running Windows Vista. Darts realizes that with the project growth of the company, they need to upgrade the computers and servers on their network. The accounting department has all of the Windows Vista computers. The director wants to upgrade to Windows 10. What are the advantages of upgrading for this department in terms of enhanced operating system functions that are available in Windows 10? You have to look that up. Then what are the disadvantages of upgrading from Vista to Windows 10? And the chapter modules will definitely help with understanding that concept. All right, PowerPoints, going back to where I was. Then you went to Windows NT 4.0. Servers had a C2 top secret security rating from the U.S. government because, most of these systems really work with the government. Um, that's how we get a lot of our technology. Then the domain was added to Windows NT. And, you used to have work groups, but work groups are associated with peer-to-peer networks. Domains are associated with um, Microsoft workstations and servers and client server networks. So that's a concept to understand that work groups are more associated with peer-to-peer networks. Client server-based networks are use domains. Okay. So that means you need to know the difference between client server and peer-to-peer. Domain was an integral part of Windows NT. Domain is an administrative and security boundary within which all members of computers are subject to common administrative and security policies. Remember, those are the definitions that we were just reading over. And you must have a domain controller to have a domain. VPNs were introduced in Windows NT. Windows 2000 was a different rewrite of the kernel. Windows 2000 used virtual private networks, provides authentication and encryption while running over a non-secure network such as the internet. And we just talked about these Kerberos, which is a security control that uses authentication protocols. You have Active Directory, which is a database that is used to store information about resources such as user accounts, computers, printers, and domain-wide usage and security policies. You have your distributed network architecture. This is where multiple servers can be designated as domain controllers, each containing a copy of Active Directory. IntelliMirror, introduced to enable Windows 2000 clients to access the same desktop settings and applications. So now you have scalability. Now you have the ability of your computers to grow because you can manage resources better. Windows 2000, you have Windows XP, um, and the desktop version as well as the server version, and both offered a desktop GUI or graphical user interface. Then XP was the first Windows that required activation, which means you had to have a code in order to use that particular operating system. What did Windows XP do? It was for office and personal use. You could create accounts for different users, as well as you had the ability to configure themes for the desktop, a better help system, and more troubleshooting tools. Windows Server 2003 was created and had some of the same updates, but users could run programs on the server with Microsoft Terminal services, which is what I showed earlier. You have remote server management, the ability to run 32-bit programs on these 32-bit processors, 64, I'm sorry, and tools for managing server resources. As well as you had a number of different features. I'm not going to go to all the features. Um, Windows 7 was introduced and they used Arrow, enables organizations to more effectively manage user desktops. Arrow was things like this is what Arrow did. So I could do snaps like this. I could come to the bottom of the screen and I could, if I hovered over something, I could see the windows of what they were. It gave you additional functionality for the users to better have more productivity, greater speed, more productivity through the use of intuitive features, uniformity of the desktop, and a greater sense of reliability. You also had the introduction of a Windows firewall, which is Windows Defender. They were now using IP security, which is a protocol that's associated with VPNs, and you had the Windows servers service hardening. It restricted a service from performing activities in a critical OS structure. Now go back to thinking about the kernel and the kernel rings, ring 0, ring 1, ring 2, and ring 3. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause here, um, and I'm going to leave the majority of the going over the chapters here. I stopped at slide 23, and you still have a number of slides to go for this chapter. I expect you to do some reading. When we see each other on Tuesday, I'm going to cover some of those concepts. For those of you that are here, before you leave, I am going to expect a summary. All right. So you must be logged in and you must deliver me a check for understanding, which I will place here in this particular chapter.
What specific summary do we need to summarize?
You need to summarize everything that we covered in class
Okay.
today. All right. Give me 1 second while I create the assignment. And it needs to be a 1 to 2 paragraph summary about what you've learned in class today. Give me 1 second while I make the assignment available. And it must be turned in before 11:10. Please create two. Yeah, that's right. Paragraph. Summary. I know. GRA. Paragraph. Trying to type fast. Done. Do not use bullets. Will not create it. Also, Pass.
And this is module 2, correct?
Yep, it'll be in module 2. But this is I covered more than module 2 today.
Okay.
And this will be worth 10 points and assignments. Class activities, submission, online, text entry, follow votes. And please do not email it to me if you don't submit it on time, because a lot of people do that. I don't download student assignments to my computer. We started at 9 o'clock. Save and publish. So this is how classes will be. You'll have a discussion question as soon as you enter class. So at 9 o'clock, there's going to be a 15-minute discussion question. If you're not here in time, you missed the discussion question, I will not reopen it. When class ends, you'll have a check for understanding summary that you must complete 20 minutes before the end of class. Both are graded. Jonathan, stay on later so that after everyone leaves, we can talk in regards to the access code. All right, how far has everyone gotten?
I've got about one paragraph.
Okay. Okay. Having summaries prior to class may not assist you because I may change up what the summary is about. So you may have some information available, which is good because you may have some information available. I think it's a great concept to have some stuff available, but I may change just a little bit. I want to make sure people are paying attention because some people in virtual classes, and I don't like being like this but I've noticed a number of times when I would ask a question, I wasn't getting a response or so. But I know it can be a lot. But I want to make sure if we're going to be in a virtual environment that everyone is paying attention. I'll give you an example very quickly, and then I'll let everyone go. I was teaching a virtual class and I was asking questions. And one of my brightest students came back and I said, do you have the answer to the question? She said, can you ask it again? And I loved her honesty. She was like, I'm sorry, Mr. Helton. She said, I was cooking chicken. So, and that was during the pandemic. So I was doing that a lot. So I know we're all human. You put me in a class for a number of hours, I may start surfing the internet. It's just a human thing to do, and there are many, you know, 10 to 15 minutes is the attention span. So really, there should be breaks every 15 minutes or checks. But so I understand the nature of all of us, but I just want to ensure that we're learning as much as possible. And I know it seems like I'm running through the information until we all get our materials. But I want to make sure everyone gets the materials. Our class started last week on the 11th, and we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9, and we're done at 9:10. Everyone else, please make sure that you um, keep me updated with where you are with your access to materials in case I need to contact the bookstore if you're having problems. Um, Other than that, thank you all so much for coming and thank you for your participation. I truly appreciate it. Class is dismissed. Jonathan, stay on so that we can talk. Does anybody else have questions? Because I notice everybody else is still here. And who else is still here? Marco, you good, Marco?
Yeah, I'm just finishing up the paragraph.
You're still working on your paragraph.
I'm
Give me
just about to finish up.
hold on because it won't let you submit after.
I'm pretty much like
Oh,
two
okay.
sentences-ish away.
All right. Did
Not
I
too
close it
far
at
away.
11:10 or 11:15? I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember.
you could say around 11, yeah,
All right,
so
give me a
that
second.
range.
Let me
And then I'll
read.
be, yeah, I'm like two sentences-ish off.
All right, give me 1 second. Yep, I did close it at 11:10. Edit.
I'm still writing though.
Yeah, I'm gonna just extend the time. 20. It's not gonna accept it after that particular time. 20. Save. Okay. Yeah. It should give you the opportunity to save within that time. Okay, Jonathan, we could talk.
Okay.
Uh, so you said that your temporary access code um expired.
Yes, from last week, I messaged you about this and during class last week and everything.
Uh-huh.
That when I was trying to get the code for Cengage. They did give me the book, but they didn't give me the access code. So I was trying to actually, I got an access code from email that they sent to me, but the
Uh,
access code that they sent me was expired, and I'm still here without a code.
yeah, you got to. Did you reach back out to them because you got to let them
I
know?
I did.
Or
I sent a voicemail because no one answered, and I
okay,
did also call them, and they did say that they would get back to me on it. It's been
okay,
3 days, and they still have yet to contact me back on it.
all right. Let me send them an email right now as we're talking. Let me go to my emails. Okay.
Because like I know I missed like all the case projects from the other previous day.
Yeah, I'm going to open those back up and give everyone an opportunity because I just know that sometimes people have problems with the access
All
access
right, I
to.
got it.
You were
All
able
right.
to submit.
Yep, I got it. Oh,
Okay,
got it.
good.
It's a it's a long paragraph.
It's okay.
I did it about 95, 98, and 2000.
Okay, cool.
I also did a
So
little bit of research on them too.
110. This is
If that
110.
was okay. I'm not sure you didn't say that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because I love going into like when it was produced, when was this, when was that.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
yeah. All right. Well, I'll see you then on Tuesday.
all right. You have a good one.
So one more thing.
Uh-huh.
About the so 1.3, 1.4, are they then still gonna be open or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna open all of the chapter one content.
Okay,
So
so
that
what I found crazy is when I first did 1.1 and 1.2, I got those done. And
okay.
when I looked at the grade section, it said that 1.3 and 1.4 weren't.
Yeah, because I have to
Yeah.
go in and grade the rest of them or grade
Yeah,
them.
so I'm like, wait a minute. If it's not going to be graded, why do I that now that okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you some are automatically graded, some aren't.
Okay.
And I have to go in and automatically go back and grade it and finish that. I mean,
Okay. But 1.3 and 1.4 are going to be open again.
yep,
Do you
they
know
will
when?
be. Not necessarily, but it's going to be soon. If not, Friday,
Okay.
it'll be sometime over the
Perfect.
weekend.
All right, perfect,
Yeah,
perfect, perfect. Okay, thank you.
yeah, no problem. Uh, yeah, business ID is, oh, come on. Plain text. Okay, good. He has not been, uh, he was given a temporary access code for the course instead of the permanent. He still needs the access code for the Disengage Mind tab course. Can you please assist him? I'm going to CC you on this as well. Uh, What email do you want me to use? Because I could, Jonathan.
Yes.
What email do you want me to use so that you can
I'll
be a part of this thread?
I'll send it to you.
Okay. All right, so we got Ann, Jonathan. Check attendance. So let me know when you sent it. So this was us in 110. 110 here. Jonathan. And, Asia. She's a junior duty. Sure. So Jonathan and Solo Lupe. All right. So which email did you send it to? Did you send it through Canvas or did you send it through um, my email in Helton at bccc.edu?
I'm sorry.
Which you said you was going to send it to me. What email address did you send it to?
I sent it to my the one I sent it to the I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You were sending me your email address that I can attach to the email
Correct.
so that you can be a part of the thread.
Yes, I sent a direct message to you
Was this where did the direct message go? Did you do it in
in
the
the
chat?
chat.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't know if you were emailing me.
Oh, no, no,
Uh,
no, no, no.
okay. All right. Thank you. I have that. And I'm going to place that into this particular email. Wait a minute. Yes. this thread. Who has reached out to the bookstore and has not been granted a response. Right. Let's see. All right. Okay. I sent it off. We'll see if we hear anything back. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And we can both be plugged into